your energy crashes in the afternoon. You might be able to get through that first part of the day. Maybe you feel okay in the morning, but by the early to mid or maybe even late afternoon, you are crashing. I mean, like, need to lie on the couch, can't get up to help the kids, just craving bedtime so that you can be done with this day. This is pretty common. This is something that I see a lot in the mums that I work with. And you're definitely not alone if you think that this is just a normal part of being a mum of young kids, or maybe you think it's related to your current sleep situation. But today we're going to explore the 3 key reasons why this might be happening unrelated to your sleep, and a couple of steps that you can take to make sure that your energy is more stable throughout the day. So, before we jump in, if we haven't met, welcome here. And if you're coming back to watch another video, welcome back. I'm Georgie and I'm a naturopath for tired mums, and I help tired mums just like you to overcome the exhaustion, rediscover themselves in motherhood, and go on to find joy along this journey that we call being a mum. So today's going to look a little bit different for this video if you are coming back, if you're a return watcher, because I'm toying with this format of kind of like a video podcast, I guess. I launched my community membership Mother Nourish last week, which some of you might know, and I'm really excited to be diving straight in and creating amazing content for those mums in the group and supporting them over there. But it just means I need to be a little bit more creative with my time so that, you can get it all done. And so I'm just going to experiment with this format today and see if, just talking it through with you works, because I'll be honest, the editing side of these videos is pretty time consuming. So let's see how this goes. Bear with me. But yeah, let's just jump straight in. So the first reason the first common cause that I see is mums skipping meals or not eating enough. And this happens for so many reasons. And if you're listening here and you feel like, oh, yep, I might be guilty of that, be kind to yourself, because there's so many things stopping us in motherhood, making it hard in motherhood for us to truly nourish our body. But what happens in terms of our energy, it's fairly simple and probably, intuitive or self-explanatory, but it's really just about having enough fuel in that tank. So we need to fuel this body of ours, especially first thing in the morning when we wake up. You think about that long stretch overnight where we've been sleeping. That is, a long time without food, and we really need to top up that tank. We are, like, in terms of our biology and our physiology, we can think of ourselves a bit like a machine. Like we need to top up that tank, whether it's with the fuel or the, recharging the battery. Like, we have to put that energy in. And what mums might find is, they skip breakfast, or maybe they just eat their kids' leftovers, or maybe they're just having coffee, and we are going to touch on coffee in just a second. But if we don't nourish our body, fuel our body first thing in the morning, then we might be able to get through that mid-morning, maybe through to lunchtime, but we are usually just running on adrenaline at that point, because what the body will do is, if it doesn't get the fuel it needs from food, it will have essentially a bit of a stress response. It will have an adrenaline release, cortisol release, and those molecules, those compounds, send signals around the body, particularly to the liver and the muscles, to tell them that we need energy immediately. So it's starting to create energy from the inside. And that's okay. Like, this is a good mechanism. We want this to happen during the times that we can't access food, when we need to skip a meal from sheer logistics of our day. But when we're doing this routinely, we're having that kind of stressful start to the day, and inevitably what will happen is like the body will kind of tap out of most of its fuel reserves, like its glycogen stores particularly. And then once that happens and that kind of adrenaline cortisol picture like calms down, then we get a crash. So it's just a pure lack of fuel. And that's a really common thing I see, like mum skipping breakfast or just having coffee for breakfast, or maybe also or skipping lunch, and it's just setting you up for that afternoon energy crash. So number one is skipping meals or just not eating enough, even if you are eating those meals. And this kind of leads us into reason number two that this happens. And this is about our blood sugar balance. So if we have poor blood sugar control or blood sugar imbalance, afternoon energy crashes or energy crashes at any point in the day are so common. And in fact, when a mum says that to me, when a mum that I'm working with says to me, I get really intense energy crashes in the afternoon, immediately my flags are going off about blood sugar. Like, what do we need to look at here around blood sugar? Do we need to do any testing? What are you eating? And we're working all that out, and then usually putting into place a few blood sugar balancing strategies. But let's have a little think about why this happens or how this happens. So our blood sugar levels are usually tightly regulated, very tightly regulated in a little range. And that's what our body is trying to keep it there to make sure that we have that constant supply of energy for our cells, but that it's not spiking too high or too low. It's like the Goldilocks point we want it in. But if we are spiking it at any point, and this usually happens based on the types of food that we eat or the foods that we're not eating, like if the meal isn't balanced, our blood sugar can spike quite high or above that Goldilocks range. And what goes up must come down in the sense of blood sugar. So if you eat something that spikes your blood sugar, it might go like this, really high, and then the body overcompensates. It wants to get that low. It does not want it to be high. So it will overcompensate and it will bring it straight down. And usually we drop below that other end of the Goldilocks point when we have this spike and crash. And that's when on the downhill of that spike, that curve, this is when we might feel the energy crash. And if you think about it, if we're doing this at breakfast, if we're doing this maybe at morning tea for our snack, if we are, and then at lunch, afternoon, finally our system, we might get little crashes all through the day, like after breakfast, a little one after morning tea, after lunch. It's usually in that afternoon period where this whole regulation of the blood sugar is just, it's gone too far, it's been going all day, and we get that real bottom out crash. Now, if you pair this with skipping meals, it can exacerbate the problem or it can contribute. So they can work hand in hand. You might skip breakfast, so you have that adrenaline response going on and then the lack of fuel going in. And then maybe at morning tea or lunch, you do have something, but it's the type of foods that spike your blood sugar. And so those two things combined, you get that crash in the afternoon. You can think of it a bit like a roller coaster is sometimes a good way to think of it. We don't want to be on the roller coaster where, the roller coaster goes up, 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 and down, and then up, 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 and down. What we really want to be on is like the toddler's roller coaster, at the fun park, at the theme park. I'm thinking here in Melbourne, we've got Luna Park, and they've got that little kiddies roller coaster. It goes like this and like this. It's just like really gentle and really easy. That's what we want our blood sugar to be doing. So some other symptoms to look out for that might be a sign that this is a problem. I mean, if you are having energy crashes, you must think about your blood sugar, number one. But you might also have like general fatigue across the day, the energy crashes, feeling sleepy after meals, feeling hungry between meals when like you really shouldn't be. You've had a decent sized meal at some point, but you're hungry, like starting to get ravenous only an hour or two after. Craving sugar, classic symptom, but also craving stimulants. So craving caffeine. If you're craving for more caffeine, it could also be a sign that you're actually craving for more energy, for that energy boost. And that's because you might be on that downside of the roller coaster. You're coming down, suddenly you're feeling like, oh shit, I need more glucose, because we want to keep it in that Goldilocks zone. So you might crave stimulants as a way of giving you that boost. Also brain fog, irritability, agitation, feeling agitated, difficulty focusing. And then, there are other things beyond just those more immediate symptoms. We can have trouble with our sleep. We can have trouble with our immune system, recurrent infections. We can have issues with our hormones. The list goes on, but focus on those immediate symptoms. Have a think about if you ever get any of those. And then beyond this, to really tease this apart, you can test for your glucose levels. We want to do a fasting glucose test first thing in the morning, no food or drinks except water for 8 hours overnight, and fasting insulin. And I am pretty firm about this with my clients that we need to test the insulin too. If we suspect blood sugar is an issue, and this will usually not get tested by your GP, so it's something that we often have to pay out of pocket for, but it is absolutely crucial, because in a lot of cases, glucose will look okay, but the insulin has started to rise. And insulin, this is what the research shows us, can start to rise even just subtly many, many years before we see the glucose come up. And so this is an early sign. This is an early way to catch it. If we test glucose alone, we won't catch you until you're in the alarm zone, the pre-diabetes state or diabetes state. And that's 5 to 10 years in the making. So must check your insulin if you are looking into this. Reason number 3, over-consuming caffeine in the morning or getting the timing wrong. Some of you might have heard me talk about caffeine before and the importance of timing and dose. Caffeine can sometimes be demonized out there in the wellness and health space, and I try not to do that. I love coffee myself. I'm all for mums having a cup, sometimes 2, to give them that energy boost in the day. It's a tool that we can use to our advantage. But with any substance, any powerful substance that influences our physiology, we need to be aware of what it's doing. We need to be mindful of how it impacts our biochemistry. So the big problem here relating to energy crashes in the afternoon, what I see is having coffee as your first thing when you wake up. It's your go-to. Instead of, not always even instead of breakfast, but it's just if you have that coffee pretty soon after waking, what happens is that it blocks adenosine. Adenosine is a compound, a molecule produced and found in our central nervous system. It's involved in regulating our sleep. It's a compound that helps us with sleep onset. So it's the compound that gives us the sense of sleepiness. Now, as mums, when we are facing broken sleep, especially if it's ongoing, chronic, like every night for a long time, adenosine is going to build up. Now, this will happen if you have one night of bad sleep, but of course it's going to be even worse for us mums who, have multiple nights of bad sleep in a row, because usually what happens is during sleep, our central nervous system will, over the period of the night, break down and clear adenosine. But if we have not enough sleep, broken sleep, bad night's sleep, that adenosine won't all get cleared. And this is why we feel tired the next day, or particularly like as the day progresses, why we start to feel sleepy before the evening, because adenosine is still hanging out in the system and still interacting with the receptors, telling it like time to be sleepy. So what happens with caffeine is that caffeine, and this is how caffeine makes us feel alert, like across the board, regardless of this energy crash topic that we're talking about. Caffeine blocks adenosine at the adenosine receptor. So it blocks that message that makes us feel sleepy, and that's why we feel alert. But if we have coffee, like as soon as we get up, or even shortly after we get up, then there's no opportunity for the central nervous system, for our body to clear away some of that adenosine, which it will do a little bit of. If you get up, coffee's not in the picture here, like just as an example, get up, go about your day, have your breakfast, whatever. Some of that adenosine, some of that sleepy message will clear, and you'll start to feel a bit more awake and alert. If we have the coffee, that doesn't happen. And so here is how it's related to the energy crash. As our body clears the caffeine over the day, and it will be doing this, as the hours pass since the coffee you drank, it will be clearing that caffeine. The adenosine's still there. And so then, as the caffeine clears, the adenosine can come back in and say, great, time to get sleepy. And that's when we might crash. And that usually coincides timing-wise as that caffeine clears. Caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours. So, by the afternoon, like if we're getting up, having our coffee at like 7 a.m. or whenever that might be for you when you wake up. Okay, I got cut off because my phone storage was full. Story of my life. So I've deleted a bunch of things, and hopefully we'll just get enough space here. So I think I was up to talking about the timing of the caffeine being cleared with that half-life. Yep, that's what I was saying. Okay, so yes, by that sort of mid-afternoon is when over half of the caffeine will have been cleared. So that impact of caffeine will have, it's really reducing. And then cue energy crash, you're on the couch feeling awful, craving sugar, feeling irritable, wishing you could go to bed, right? So with coffee, dose is crucial. If you have more of this caffeine, this is going to have an impact just later in the day. But then we have other issues with over-consuming caffeine when it comes to sleep quality, but that is a topic for another video. Try to keep it to 1, max 2. Anything after this, drink decaf. Find yourself a good decaf and drink that, because it won't have the same effect. In fact, for your second one, have a decaf. Now, we've talked about the 3 most common causes of that afternoon energy slump. Reason 1, skipping meals or not eating enough. Reason 2, blood sugar imbalance. And reason 3, over-consuming caffeine in the morning and getting the timing wrong. But let's talk about some simple, actionable things you can do to overcome these. Let's start with coffee. If possible, try to wait 60 to 90 minutes after waking before you have your coffee. This allows time for the nervous system to clear out some of that adenosine before you pop the caffeine in. Now that for some of you might feel really hard to wait 60 to 90 minutes. And this is about habit. This is really about habit. And I know if you're tired, you're waking up unrefreshed, you're having broken sleep, the caffeine is more than just about habit. It's also about like helping you get up and get going for the day. But like anything, we can shift this, and the best way to do it really is to do it slowly. Some of you will be like all or nothing kind of people, and that's okay. If you want to just cold turkey, try drinking your coffee 60 to 90 minutes after waking, go for it. But what I usually recommend is doing it slowly over a week or two, because this is a habit we want to stick to. It's not just a short-term thing. So if you're used to having your coffee like the first thing you do after you get up, can you wait 10 minutes? Can you wait 15 minutes? Do that for a few days. See how that feels. See what comes up. Then after you've done that a few days, or maybe it's easy the first day, the next day, 30 minutes. You see where I'm going here? We slowly build up to that 60 to 90 minutes. Another thing you can do in the morning, instead of reaching straight for that coffee, is to have a hot cup of water, which sounds so exciting, I know. But yes, the caffeine in the coffee helps us get that morning lift, helps us feel good, but it's not the only reason. Hot drinks help us to raise our core body temperature. And that helps us to feel awake and alert in the morning. So it's not just the caffeine, it's also the hotness, the hot liquid that helps our core body temperature to start rising, and all the biochemistry that goes with that. It's an internal signal to our body that it's daytime, it's time to get up, it's time to feel alert. We get that hormonal cascade that helps us to get going. So have a hot cup of plain water, a hot cup of herbal tea, something non-caffeinated. Try it. Okay, moving on. You can not skip meals, would be clearly the obvious thing to do there in terms of our first common cause with skipping meals or not eating enough. If you are a mum who you feel tired, you feel exhausted, skipping meals is not on the menu in terms of helping yourself feel more energized and overcome that exhaustion. So making the effort, making a plan, which is not about effort, it's the wrong word. I know you're already trying so hard, doing your best, feeding your kids, keeping food in the cupboard, in the fridge. So it's not about effort, it's about planning, intention, maybe even a bit of a mindset shift. I'm going to nourish myself. I'm choosing to nourish myself. I will plan to eat X, Y, Z. You are a fully grown human adult woman who is working her ass off every day to care for her family, tend to her home. Maybe you're working too. Your body needs fuel regularly, especially first thing in the morning after a long night's sleep, maybe a bumpy night's sleep too. So please eat breakfast. Please eat lunch. Please eat 3 meals a day. The final thing we can do, and this is really addressing that blood sugar piece, is to make sure that we eat enough protein. If you watched a few of my videos, you probably could have predicted that I was going to say that. But what happens is when we are under consuming protein, and lots of us are, we are naturally going to overconsume carbohydrates. And it's the carbohydrate foods that are the foods that are spiking our blood sugar. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't eat them or that they're bad. It's just that if we're not eating them in the right balance with other nutrients, other foods that help to, stabilize this whole picture, then they are going to cause a spike in our blood sugar. So I'm thinking, sugary foods, carbohydrate-rich foods, grain-based foods, breads, pastas, cereals, oats, rice, cookies, crisps, chips, whatever you want to call them. Lots of snack foods are very carbohydrate heavy. So these foods on their own, consumed on their own, with not balanced with protein, fat, and fiber, which is the ultimate combo we really want to be aiming for blood sugar balance. You're going to start yourself off on that blood sugar roller coaster. If we have cereal for breakfast or toast for breakfast, or even oats or porridge for breakfast, not sort of with added ingredients that can help balance things, those things are going to spike you. You're going to go up on that roller coaster, and then you're going to be coming back down, either crashing in energy, craving sugar, craving food, irritable, tired, foggy. So eating enough protein, it's not just the protein alone. Like I said, we do want to be balancing our meals with carbs, protein, fats, and some fibers. So it's not just the protein, but why I start with protein is because it ticks so many boxes for tired mums. Not just blood sugar, but yet definitely that. But the energy piece, partially related to stabilizing the blood sugar, but also independently of that, we need protein for our energy production pathways. We need protein for recovering postpartum, which goes on for many months. So even you mums of older toddlers, you might still be recovering in different ways. It's needed if you're breastfeeding in higher amounts. It's needed for hormone balance, needed for mood regulation, so many reasons. The other reason, and I've covered this in a lot more detail in previous videos, so I'll link them for you to watch if you want to take a deeper dive on the protein piece, is that the protein foods that I recommend, bioavailable sources, which are our animal foods, I recommend them most of the time to meet most of our protein needs. They're also the most nutrient dense foods. So when they do studies, good quality studies that look at bioavailability and the nutrient density, these foods come out on top. So we're meeting our nutrient needs, we're stabilizing our blood sugar, helping our energy, regulating our mood, helping our hormones, the list goes on. And it just so happens that protein is also the macronutrient that women are under eating the most. Overeating carbs, under eating protein, and we just want to shift that balance. There are lots more strategies we can do around the blood sugar piece. Many other strategies, but this is the foundational one. Avoid eating carbohydrate foods on their own and eat enough bioavailable protein with your main meals. Okay, well, I think that's probably where we'll leave it today. And if you're watching this and you are a tired mum, you are getting afternoon energy slumps, I have a free guide that's available for download, which covers 7 very simple to implement, but very important steps to boosting your energy, stabilizing your energy. They're foundational steps, things that I make sure the mums I work with one-on-one are doing all the time. So you can access this guide for free. I'll leave the link for you to download it here. And it will help you with this energy piece, this energy slump piece. All right, that's it. Leave me any questions below, and I'll see you in the next video.